Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Horizon 5. Today we are taking a look at another Car Pass edition. This is the 2018 Ferrari FXX-K EVO. A reminder to Car Pass owners to redeem Car Pass cars, scroll over to the buy and sell tab in your homepage, click on Car Pass, and you'll be able to redeem any cars that you've missed out on here. The 2018 Ferrari FXX-K EVO is in the Extreme Track Choice class and has a 1036 horsepower, 663 foot-pound torque, weighs 2,800 pounds of weight, is S2 class 998 PI, meaning it's right at the top of S2 class. Any further upgrades and you'll push it into X class, and is mid-engined rear-wheel drive. The Ferrari FXX-K EVO is essentially just an aero package for the existing Ferrari FXX-K in order to make it much more downforcey for track day conditions. And you can see over the standard FXX-K it has a much more aggressive front end with the canards, a lot going on in this front splitter. It's got a bigger front fascia in order to go along with that as well. Moving down the side of the car, you've got a slightly more aggressive side aero package, but of course there's stuff happening underneath the floor which is far more important, creating a lot more aero underneath the car to push all of that air towards this giant rear diffuser, which looks absolutely ridiculous and fantastic. It almost looks like it's got the American impact bumpers because of how aggressive this rear aero is, and of course these ridiculous looking exhaust pipes as well are very cool. And of course you'd be very remiss not to notice the giant rear wing on this car now, with the fin sort of heading towards the rear end. Very cool looking. I love the strakes on this, and overall it just looks a lot more purposeful than the standard FXX-K, as if that's really possible, but Ferrari have somehow managed it. Now this car is part of the XX range of Ferraris, which are essentially track-ready versions of existing cars. We've had the FXX, which was a track version of the Ferrari Enzo, the 599XX, and the later Evolution, which we'll get to later, which was of course the 599. And now of course we got the FXX-K, which is based on the Ferrari LaFerrari. Now these are interesting cars. These are essentially the cars that you can buy from Ferrari, but you can't actually stick them in your garage. Instead, Ferrari hold on to these and they'll ship them to whatever track you may want. And essentially they're primarily used as development mules for Ferrari in order for them to learn a lot more about aerodynamics, how sort of wind goes over cars, etc, etc. They are essentially development mules that you buy because Ferrari keeps hold of the data from your track day, so they can keep an eye out and see sort of what they can do, which is actually quite cool. It's an interesting way of getting rich people to do your beta testing for you. And that's essentially what these cars are. This being the EVO, again, it is a more aggressive aero package. We have seen previously with the 599XX Evolution, and that was essentially the standard 599XX. I think there might have been a few more improvements to that car, but it essentially boiled down to an aero package. In this case, it is an aero package. There is slightly less weight in this car as well. However, trying to find an actual figure and how they managed to reduce as much weight as they supposedly did is kind of difficult, and as you'll see in a minute when looking between this and the standard car, there really isn't all that much weight that has been chucked out of it. And of course in the back you've got your 6.3 litre V12 with 1036 horsepower, very similar to that you would find in the Ferrari LaFerrari. So as I said, I'm going to take a quick look in my garage now, essentially just to compare it to the standard FXX-K, and that's, when you look at these cars side by side, you can really see the differences. The much more aggressive front end on the Evolution model, you've got different wheels I think as well, and that rear wing, sort of the entire rear end of the car is just entirely different to the standard FXX-K. As I said, looks a lot more purposeful. And that being said, in game, as you can see, there's not really too much difference in terms of statistics you can see. For some reason, the standard car makes one more foot-pound of torque than the EVO does, for whatever reason, and also there is 31 pounds lighter in favour of the FXX-K EVO. The big difference, of course, is the 19 PI points between these cars. This being S2998 means there is absolutely no upgrade you can do to this car, and they'll just push it straight into X class if you decide to do anything that improves the performance of this vehicle, while as the standard FXX-K, you have got a little bit of room to play. You've got about 20 PI difference, and of course when you're talking about S2 class cars, there's an awful lot you can do there. And so as a result, and because this has a more aggressive aero package, in standard trim the FXX-K will be quicker than this car, just because this has a more aggressive aero package, and of course the more aggressive your aero package, the worse your top speed is going to be naturally if you don't improve that with power or anything of the sort. And likewise, if you're talking about comparing the standard FXX-K to the EVO, you know, you've got a lot more room for modification, so you can probably make the standard FXX-K quicker than this vehicle around a lap of a track. And that sort of leads you to question what really is the point of this. Sure, it looks cooler, but the standard FXX-K is probably the better vehicle, and of course, even that, there's better S2 class cars you can pick. Of course, this has the advantage of being free, which is very nice, but yeah, maybe a little bit pointless in terms of the car pass. And in case you're wondering, there are no unique modifications for this vehicle. There's no engine swaps, as you might expect, because you don't really need another engine in this. You can all-wheel drive swap it, which does give you some PI back, but that's about it. But other than that, there are essentially no upgrades. There's nothing major you can do with the engine either. If you can get an extra 100 horsepower out of this, I would be surprised. And again, you wouldn't really want to, because that pushes you into X-Class, and then you've got a whole other can of worms, because there are a lot of cars in X-Class, and that could probably smoke this one. So there you go, that is an overview of the 2018 Ferrari FXX-K EVO. Do hope you've enjoyed. Join us next time. I'm going to take a look at another car pass edition, or more specifically, because I am a couple of weeks behind now, the 2019 Audi TT RS Coupe. So join us for that. Until then, farewell.